Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning, everyone. This is Laurie Smith on Blog Talk Radio. It is 6 o'clock here in the morning, Friday morning, July 15th. I'm glad to be here. This is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another, and we're on for 30 minutes. It's a live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com. I did pop the link into the chat room that we're looking at. I've been on this a couple months now, looking at Robert Burney's web pages, Joy to Me and You. And hopefully somebody's getting something out of this. I know I am. His work is quite spiritual. It's pretty deep, and Robert Burney is a codependence therapist, a grief counselor. He's a spiritual teacher. He's an author. He's written a book called Codependence: The Dance of Wounded Souls, and his website's really awesome. www.joy2meu.com, and there's lots and lots of info there. You can go to the site tab and click on the site tab, and it'll take you to an index of what he's written there, what he has there, and there's all kinds of categories and really great stuff. He has a lot of material there, so hopefully somebody's getting something out of this. And I appreciate everybody tuning into the shows. It's great. I've had a lot of people listening to the shows. I'm almost at 33,500 listens, and so that means somebody's listening. I do appreciate it. I know a lot of my good friends are tuning in, but I don't know who a lot of people are who are listening, and I appreciate you taking the time to do this. It's a lot of work keeping up with my shows, so I'm not a counselor, I'm not a therapist, I'm just a person, private citizen paying to do my shows here on Blog Talk Radio, and I just wanted to be one more voice speaking out against abuse and standing up for child rights, really promoting human rights, and mainly speaking out against child abuse, and also for survivors. I just wanted to be just one more place of encouragement for people to keep going and never ever give up, right? And so this is my healing journey here in the morning, One Child Abuse Survivor to Another. And I'm hopefully it's helping somebody to see that some of the things they may be going through, that they're not alone in that, and that I truly keep that hope alive. That there is healing, there is a point where we can feel better about things. I know in the last 4 years that's how it's been for me, because I can see the progress that's been made. So it's just amazing. So I wish that for everybody, and I just want to be a bit of a voice of encouragement for people. And it also helps me to make sense of what happened to me as a child, and hopefully it will give people who study psychotherapists and counselors and whatnot. I have some psychotherapists and counselors listening to my shows, and I hope that it will help them to see what goes on behind the scenes and what goes on in a person's mind, and what's been done to their psyche, and from the abuse that people have suffered, right? So just one more source of information for them too. So thanks everybody for being here. You have to listen at your own discretion, because I'm talking about abuse, and abuse is a sensitive subject, and it's very, it could trigger you if you're a survivor that's just starting out your healing journey. This type of material can definitely trigger people. You need to be careful what you listen to, and if you think the show might bother you, or the topics of abuse or anything like that, then you need to turn the show off. Don't listen to my shows, because I don't sugarcoat it. I just tell it like it is, right? And I don't minimize it, because that's what the world has always done. Society just minimize it and put it under the carpet, make it seem like it's not that bad, or it never was that bad, or did it really even happen, or all these things. It's a form of denial, right? And that people could be so heinous and so ugly to do things, horrible, heinous acts to children. People don't want to see it. They don't want to know the reality and the truth. So I thought, well, I don't mind talking about it. I've had to deal with this my whole life, but it is sensitive material, and you do need to be careful what you're listening to. So if you find the show might bother you, just turn it off. Your discretion. And young people under the age of 18, I ask that you have permission to listen to my shows, because I don't know how young the people are who are listening, and this is really adult material for adults, or older teens. I really wouldn't suggest this is for young children at all. And I always put a discretionary warning on my stuff, because I don't know how young the people are who may be listening. So if you're young and you're under the age of 18, have somebody listen to the show with you to make sure that they can sort of help you to make a decision whether it's age appropriate for you, right? So thanks, everybody. We're going to get right into this, and we're looking at grief process techniques, the path to love and forgiveness. And this is from Robert Burney's webpage, is at Joy to Me and You, JOY2MU.com. And we're right down towards the end of the page here, and I wanted to finish this up today, at least this portion of it, and then move on to the next portion. But he was saying, the only one who can really truly, bring us this healing that we need really is within us. He says the only healer who can heal you is within you. And he says the only one who can give your inner children healthy parenting is you. And He says, now we all need help along the way. We all need guidance and support, and it is vitally important. It's a vitally important part of the healing process to learn to ask for help. So this is what we were kind of looking at yesterday, and also to make sure that we get trustworthy people in our lives that can help us. Right? Not everybody is going to. We know people hurt people, right? So we have to be very careful who we're going to let into our lives. And then he goes on to talk about the drugs and the psychotherapy and psychoanalysis and stuff. And that's his sort of views on the whole thing. Is that the mental health system really doesn't. This is his view. Doesn't necessarily help people to get better. Just sort of keeps them dependent on it through drugs and whatnot. And me, myself, I can't really make an opinion on. I can't make a judgment on that because I've never used the mental health system, so I don't know how it works, And so I don't want to make I can't even give my own opinion on it. So that's just his opinion. So I want to skip down to learning is remembering, and what he says is teaching is reminding others that they can remember too. And so he says no one outside of you can define for you what your truth is. And he says nothing outside of you can bring you true fulfillment. You can only be fully filled by accessing the transcendent truth that already exists within. So truth, truth is everything, and especially dealing with, with these types of issues, like child abuse. I remember when I was writing my book, I was writing a blog. It was a public-facing blog, Not So Fond Memories, growing up in an abusive home, and I was writing these entries, pretty much every night or every few nights as they would come to me, and I would just put these little chapters out every day publicly so people could see. I really wanted people to see what happened to me as a child, what happened to my family. And before I started writing the blog, I really sat down and I thought, okay, since I'm going public with my story, it has to be truth, and it has to be exactly 100%, truth for me, because I don't want to, obviously don't want to write something that's not true. You know what I mean? Because to me, that's just, I believe that, I'm a Christian, right? So I believe in the judgment. I really believe that I'm going to stand, that I'm going to have to account for what I've said and what I've done in my life. And so I thought I certainly don't want to be, telling non-truths, right? Because truth in child abuse is it's an absolute must. You know what I mean? People, the issue is that child abuse is it's so heinous, it's so ugly that the truth is always being twisted in it. For many survivors, they think, well, maybe that didn't really happen to me. Maybe I'm just crazy, or maybe somebody in the family will say that never happened to you, right? And it's no, but I know it did. That's my truth. That's what's reality to me. So, I think truth is everything. It's very important to be truthful and honest about this stuff when we're actually dealing with it, and we have to be truthful with ourselves. You know what I mean? So truth is everything to me, and I know, no one can define for you what your truth is, no one was in your body, nobody was in your mind, nobody was in that space except for whoever was actually really there at the time when these things occurred, this horrible whatever it was, right? And so I decided when I started writing my story, I thought, man, it has to be 100% truth. So if there was a memory that I couldn't get a hold of, it, something that I really couldn't see a clear cognitive picture, remember conversations around it, or remember, really the full details, it didn't go into my book. Because I really want to make sure that, I had clear cognitive memories in order to make these statements, these bold statements that my parents abused me, and one of my siblings sexually abused me. So it had to be truth for me, because I didn't want to be 20 years down the road sitting there thinking, man, did I really tell the truth? I had to be really sure, because truth is truth. And so, learning, I think, a lot of survivors think, well, was I really abused? Because so many people will say, you were never abused, you know what I mean? And within family units especially, I came from a large family, and, they're almost all dead now, but, there's a few of us left. And they're in denial. They'll admit to some of it. They'll say, oh, well, yeah, okay, I remember that, or, or I remember this, or whatever. But then they like to minimize it and say, oh, it wasn't that bad. And I'm like, well, okay, Mom didn't smash your head in with a rolling pin. How about that? And really, and did brother rape you and sodomize you? Come on, you know what I mean? No, it's a form of denial when people want to shut down the truth. And truth is truth, and it is what it is. And, is hurtful. And, when we are looking at this stuff, we have to be very careful, because like I was saying yesterday, and I actually pretty much say it on every show, you have to be really sure you can do the healing work on your own if you're going to do self-help. Like if you're listening and you're a survivor and you're just starting out and you're thinking, oh, I can do it, you want to be very, very sure. You know what I mean? Because I went through the workbook, the ASCAsupport.org Survivor to Thriver workbook, and that workbook's great. And they have, I'm sure there's all kinds of great workbooks out there, but what I liked about this one was they had the first 35 pages was safety first. The first 35 pages devoted to whether or not you really are safe enough to do the workbook at all on your own, or whether you need support or help with it, because you certainly don't want to start your healing journey out and then get halfway or quarter way through and find out that you're in a state of crisis because of these memories resurfacing and these feelings, and these emotions that are just get out of control and whatever, right? It's very harsh. So we have to be very careful what we're doing, because truth hurts. See, that's why I think this whole thing about truth is very important. That we have to be truthful with ourselves. Can we do the journey, on our own? Can we really do this work on our own, or do we need help with it? Right? Serious questions to ask ourselves, and we have to be 100% honest with ourselves. But he says here, this age of healing and joy is a time for each individual to access the truth within. It is not a time for gurus or cults or channeled entities or anyone else to tell you who you are, right? Outside agencies, other people, channeled entities, this book can only remind you of what you already know on some level. So that's very true. People can't go, I believe that, that's why Robert Burney says we're the only ones that can really do the healing work, because the healer is within us. We're the only ones that really know what happened to us. So, there's really nobody else that can really get, to do that work. And also, it's like I can't go back and get what I needed as a child. I can't go back and get that nurturing and that love and that compassion and the mercy and the caring. The abuse happened. It's done. It's in the past. There's really nothing I can't change that. But so what I figured is that I needed to start, when I started looking into my healing journey here about 4 years ago, was that I needed to become my own nurturer, because nobody was going to be able to go back and do that for me. To go in and nurture my little infant, my little inner child, my little toddler, my and then all the way through, because my mother was horrible. You know what I mean? Like, well, she was really lost herself. Like, she was abused as a child and in an abusive marriage that she hated the offspring of this man who was raping her, and we were it. So it's not like she had really a whole lot of love for us. I think she wanted to. She just couldn't bring herself to. She was manic depressive. She was always depressed and suicidal tendencies. She hated life. She hated her husband, and so we were the offspring of this thing that she hated. And it's really, unfortunate that happened to her. Does it excuse what it did to me? No, not at all. But still, I do understand on some level why she did what she did, but it doesn't mean it's okay, and it never will be okay. It says the more we integrate the spiritual truth of a loving higher power into our internal relationship with others, the easier it becomes to surrender to the process, to surrender to the flow of emotional energy. So he's real spiritual, as you can tell, and I'm Christian, so I don't like this stuff is a little bit on the edge for me. But the thing is I understand on some level what it is, because there is the living water to me. I'm a Christian, right? There is this spiritual, God is spirit, right? And so I'm real spiritual myself. I'm not religious, so I can see on one level what he's talking about. It says integrating that spiritual truth into our inner process makes it easier for us to trust that we can be a loving parent to our wounded inner children. And I've seen this on other websites, like not just his. Like, I think this is something that seems to be it's just a fundamental, a fundamental rule that, we have to nurture ourselves from so long ago. Nobody's going to be able to go in there and reach my little toddler who didn't get held and loved and just got pushed away all the time, Like, nobody's going to go in and be able to soothe my 5-year-old who was witnessing a lot of domestic violence and sort of in the middle of a violent situation between my parents and my older brothers, and just the violence and the sheer hatred that was in my home. Nobody's going to be able to go in there and comfort her except for me, nobody's going to be able to go and get a hold of that 8-year-old who was raped and sodomized and heal her and help her and hold her. Like, nobody's going to be able to do that but me, you know. And nobody's going to be able to go and get that 10-year-old who my mother beat and savagely, you know, twisted my mind and my body and everything else, you know, because I'm the only one that can reach her. So that's the thing, and that's why, I mean, at first when I was looking at inner child stuff, I was like, I didn't quite understand it. This was at least a couple of years ago. I started really looking into it, and I found that after the last couple of years of looking into it, I realized that, yeah, that's so true. I mean, all these little parts of myself, you know, from so long ago that were so wounded are still there. You know, I can see them because I was there. I know what I know. I witnessed it. I was there. You know what I mean? So I'm a witness. So I can be my own witness, and I can be my own nurturer, and I can help myself. You know, and that's what I've been working on, really, for the last 2 years, and it's taken me a long time. But I am working through each portion as it comes. You know, and what seems to be working for me is just to allow it to freely flow. The last stuff that I'm dealing with is really, I think, or maybe some of the last stuff I'm dealing with is the CSA incest, and that's what I'm working on right now. And so, you know, I figure at the end of the road, you know what I mean, I hope to be experiencing some peace and some joy and, you know, a real sense of going back in, you know, and having done this healing work and healing and helping my inner children to feel better and to, you know, to show them that they are loved, they are wanted, that never should have happened to them. Because that's me talking to myself so long ago. I needed to hear that. You know, I needed somebody to, like my mother, you know, told me that I told my mother about the sexual abuse that was going on because I was in pain and I had a serious infection and I was really, I was a mess. And so I told her, and I said, brother's doing things to me at night. And I said, I'm in pain. And my mother was like, well, what do you want me to do about it? That's not my problem. That's your problem, right? She was not going to deal with my 21-year-old brother, right? I mean, she was being sexually abused too by my dad. So I mean, there you go. Like, he was a horrible man. And so I think she just figured, hey, I'm dealing with it. You deal with it, right? I mean, how sick and how twisted can you possibly be to allow a 21-year-old to rape your 8-year-old daughter? Like you have to be really sick and twisted to allow something like that. You know, and so I go back, you know, now in there and have, you know, done some real work in this last few weeks, you know, and go back to that little child and tell her, you did not deserve that. Let me help you heal. Let me help you, you know, overcome the grief. Let me help you overcome the pain. Let me help you clean up. You know? I mean, my God, you know, like, and people expect that we're going to do well after something like that. It's like, you know, but I'm just talking about the CSA and incest. I mean, I'm not talking about like physical abuse. I mean, I know all about this stuff, you know, like physical abuse is incredibly damaging. I've had to go back in there and talk to my 13-year-old, you know, and get a hold of myself at 13 and say, oh my God, you know, like you just did not deserve this at all, because my mother was in she had a hate on for me, you know, and like she would trash me, like she would beat the shit out of me, and she would physically hurt me to the point where she would spill my blood, and she did not care. She didn't care if she hurt, like she almost killed me, you know. I mean, I could have died from a concussion or anything else, and she did not care, you know. And like, I mean, I go back into that little person and I tell them, they're a little older, you know, 13 and a half, and I tell them, you did not deserve that. Let me sit with you. Let me help you, you know, because there's nobody that can go in there and do that but me. So this is the issue. It is really, it's been very, very helpful for me to do this work, but that's what I'm saying. You have to be very careful if you're going to attempt to do this on your own, because it requires you to go back in and help these wounded parts that sometimes we're not ready to see. You know? So I'm not suggesting that people do this on their own. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't suggest you do anything on your own unless you are 100% sure that you can do it. Because it's really extremely important that you know beyond a shadow of a doubt that you are 100% certain that you're secure enough to do the work, right? Because you can hurt yourself, you can hurt somebody else, and you do not want to do that. And you don't want to go backward in your healing journey. That's also another huge issue, right? ASCA support, www.asca, that's Adult Survivors of Child Abuse, ASCA support, SUPPORT.org. They have that Survivor to Thriver workbook on there, and it's free. It's a free download, or you can read it right on the site. And the first 35 pages are safety first. I would go through that just to make sure you can do this stuff on your own, because you don't want to get stuck in the middle of some flashback and just not be able to come back from it, and just find it's just too hard and end up spiraling downward. Like, that's not good at all, right? And so I was really careful when I started my healing journey, but I was already suicidal, so I thought, well, okay, I made a commitment to myself, 4 years ago. I tell this almost every show, but because I never know who's tuning in for the first time, and they may not listen to any more of my shows, so I really want people to get this. You know what I mean? Like, I made a commitment to myself 4 years ago that I would never ever attempt to kill myself or plan my suicides again. Ever. I was like, no, I'm going to live. I made a commitment to heal. I made a lot of commitments that day. I said, I was like, I will never ever think like that again, and I will allow myself to get help. I was sitting around by myself, suicidal and wanting to self-injure and everything else about 4 years ago, in a deep, dark place that was the same old place I'd always been. Hell. And so I was just, I was like, no, I'm climbing out of this pit, man. I'm coming out of here, and I'm going to heal, and I'm going to allow myself to win this fight, because, the whole purpose of it really was I almost figured it was kind of getting back at my abusers, because they tried to destroy me, right? So I'm like, I'm not going to allow them to destroy me. Nope, not. I'm going to win this fight. So I got pissed off. I got angry. And I said, no more will I self-abuse. I'm going to get help, and I'm going to be good to myself. I'm going to be kind to myself. I'm going to be good to other people, right? And I'm going to allow myself to heal, whatever it takes, whether I have to go for professional help or whether I can do it on my own. But one way or another, I am coming out of this victorious, because my abusers are not going to win this fight. So it's, it was really important to me, and that's why I really like to repeat this, just in case somebody hasn't heard it. It's really important not to ever give up, because I start to think, why am I doing this to myself? These are my abusers, my abusers, 2 of them are dead, one from my brother killed himself, suicide. My mother died 16 years ago. And, I'm like, well, why am I still being abused? You know what I mean? I'm still being, 4 years ago, I was still being battered every day by my mother, verbally cursed out, and just feeling the abuse day after day, you know what I mean? It's absolutely horrific that this stuff just continues and continues and continues to hurt us, and I'm thinking, okay, how many years ago was that? I'm like 41 years old when I started my healing journey, right? And I'm like, and this hell is still with me. And I was like, oh my God, these guys, they almost destroyed me, And I thought, man, I cannot allow that. Like, I have to, get help, right? And so I started to look into self-help mainly at first. And I thought, man, if I can't do the self-help, I'm going for professional help. I don't care, man. Which goes against all of my, goes against everything I believe in to go for, what I mean? Because I don't trust people, right? So I don't trust therapists, right? So I don't trust counselors and stuff like that. But you know what, though? I thought, hey, it's worth it to me to suck it up and say, okay, if I can't do this self-help, I will get help, right? Because 2 of my siblings killed themselves, So not good, right? I was, heading the same road. So very important to allow ourselves to get help, So, he says, we can be that loving parent to our wounded inner children, right? It says that makes it easier to have compassion for ourselves. This is Robert Burdy talking. And he says, and for the wounded parts within ourselves, so that we can change our emotional relationship with our own emotions. The more we own our own feelings, get emotionally honest with ourselves, the easier it becomes to know who we are and what we want. And he says then it becomes easier to see our path more clearly and follow the intuitive messages from our soul instead of giving power to the dysfunctional reactions of our wounded soul or inner child, right? So that's the end of that page. And if you go down, there's grieving examples of how the process works. But yeah, this is the thing. I think we're owning these feelings, owning these parts of ourselves. And, first I didn't really understand it. I kind of still sort of don't, but part of me does. I'm starting to understand it, because I didn't want to own this stuff, right? I didn't want to own that, the pain and the actual acts of this heinous stuff that the people that should have been looking out for me did to me, And so what I thought, because I equated it to like this necklace that my parents put around my neck, and my sibling, full of hatred, full of pain, full of evil, right? Evil, twisted stuff around this necklace, and they put it on me, and they made me wear it, and I carried this thing around until the age of 41, and it was all their garbage. It was their evil stuff on this necklace that was making me carry me, making me wear it, And that's what I kind of, in my mind could picture, because I just felt this heavy weight around my neck, this heavy weight around me that was just their stuff. They put it on me, I didn't rape myself. I certainly didn't sodomize myself. I didn't beat myself with a rolling pin. You know what I mean? Like, these people, hurt me. And I'm like, oh my God, look at the crap they put around this necklace, and they stuck it on me, and I'm supposed to wear this thing. And I thought, oh my God, it's not even mine. It's just, I don't want to own this thing. I took it off my neck and I threw it away. I just envisioned myself doing that. I was like, it was just a spiritual thing, and I was like, I just throw it away. It's not mine. I refuse to carry it anymore, and I felt better. I was like, oh, thank God, I don't have to wear that around anymore. That makes more sense to me, right? But on some level, I'm trying to see what this whole owning the feelings are, because I understand it to some level, I mean, I had to go in, listen at your own discretion, because I'm talking about CSA and incest, and this is very, very sensitive material. It's, I had to go in and, like last night I did some healing work, because I've been having a lot of body memories and a lot of, because I'm looking at the feelings and also the mental pictures in my mind of what happened to me when I was 8 years old, and so I'm going in and I'm remembering all this stuff, and I'm thinking, oh my God, and I can picture. I'm like, oh, I can picture like the whole thing, obviously, and then of course I've got these body memories going on, and I mean, and I'm sitting there as I'm remembering this stuff, and I see just how hurt I was at that point, on that particular night, and just the horror of it, it was horrific, and thinking to myself, while I'm watching this, as an adult now, thinking back, I thought, well, I guess I do have to own that pain, that grief, because this is what they did. This is what he did to me, And so, if I'm going to get in touch with myself, I guess, and get in touch with really what it did to me, which was hurt me, then I'm going to have to if I have to, like what I'm doing is reaching into that 8-year-old, right? Because she was still there. She was still tied up on the bed. She was still gagged and bound, right? And she was still in pain, and she was still bleeding. Because I had left her a long time ago, I tell you that, in order to cope and in order to deal with that and to deal with the continuation of the sexual abuse and the rape. And, I had to split. My mind split. So in order for me to deal, I had to part of me had to say, oh, okay, I'm not going to think about it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to put that somewhere, tuck that away neatly somewhere so that I can cope through my day, right, as an 8.5-year-old child, right? And so, I'm looking in and I'm thinking, well, if I'm going to reach her, get in touch with her, I got to know where she's at, And, looking into this stuff, I know, like, I can see why, why Robert Burney says, and other people have said that you do have to own your pain, you have to own what they did, in order to heal from it, because we have to take our power back. So I have to be able to say, you hurt me, but you can no longer hurt me. See? So I've done a whole lot of work in that this last week or so, taking my power back, my body back, taking everything back, taking my virginity back, and saying, it was mine, you hurt me. I take it back. And remembering that this girl was 8 years old. She didn't have the concept of what was happening to her. She didn't, it was a nightmare, an absolute nightmare. So, this is the kind of stuff that I'm dealing with. But you know what? It's good, because I'll be able to move on. I'll be able to move on, and that's really awesome, because I couldn't move on because I was being raped every day for the last 37 years. Horrible. So this is wonderful, and I'm very happy about it, right? So, you do what you have to do, but, you make sure that you stick it out. Like, we got about just a couple seconds left here, but, my whole thing about doing this work here and stuff is really to show people that there is hope. There's other people in front of me with their hands out that have been through so much worse, and they're sitting there today like a beacon of light, in front of me, saying, you can do this, you can do this. and we're here for you. And and the only reason I met these people is because I reached out. So I would say, make sure you do reach out and get some help. Don't allow yourself to suffer and alone and in sadness. And we certainly deserve so much better than that. I tell you that. And it won't happen if we don't stick around. I'm so glad I made the right choice to stick around, and I hope that you will too. Have a great day and have a great weekend. I'll be around a little bit later on. If you need something, contact me on Blog Talk Radio or wherever. And if you need any information I might have, let me know. And otherwise, I'll be back next week on my shows as well as tonight, and on Dreamcatchers Talk Radio here on Blog Talk Radio as well. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks for being here, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.